from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up on Ag Day, NAFTA negotiators return to the table, plus the AgDay Harvest Tour continues.
I'm Betsy Gibbon. We're over in eastern Iowa, where farmers are trying to harvest as fast as they can to beat the rain.
In agribusiness, can lean hog prices go higher?
Lower prices are curing lower prices as we're starting to find demand.
Fires burn through California's wine country.
It felt a little bit like an overreach on the government's part.
And a mystery ingredient catches the attention of food safety regulators.
Ag Day, presented by the Chevy Silverado. High-strength steel for high-strength dependability.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. As leaders from Canada, Mexico, and the United States meet in Washington to kick off round 4 of NAFTA negotiations this morning, the ag industry is hoping the theme of slow progress turns into major headway as talks heat up. The trade negotiations making their way back to Washington after wrapping up in Canada earlier this month. More than a month into discussions, and progress has been slow. The leaders, they're diving into key ag issues, with the dairy expected to be brought up this week. U.S. trade officials expecting to demand increased access to Canada's dairy and poultry markets while pointing to Canada's current supply management system. The slow start spurring frustration from those in ag. Well, Farm Journal Washington correspondent Jim Wiesmeyer, however, calling it normal.
I think it's, very normal. And I know agriculture has a history of wanting things right away. And in the case of negotiations, they usually don't happen that way. I mean, think even in playoffs, even in a short series, it's the best of 5. And this is just the 4th round of talks. So that by itself, you're sparring at the beginning and you're trying to find out, similarities first. Every negotiation for trade that I've covered in my over 40 years in Washington have been similar.
Wiesmeyer says the only difference today is how aggressive the Trump administration is on its trade stance. The biggest wild card of the trade deal to watch is the auto sector. He says if an agreement is made on the auto side, he thinks leaders will then start finding compromises on other sticking points. That includes agriculture. But what happens if the NAFTA negotiations end with no deal? We'll have that answer Thursday on Ag Day. USDA's crop progress report came out Tuesday due to the federal Columbus holiday on Monday. The report showing corn and soybean harvest starting to get further behind, and in some cases significantly. Overall, soybean harvest is 7 points behind at 36% completed. But Minnesota soy harvest running 41 points behind average. South Dakota 37 points behind. Iowa soy 19 points behind. Turning to corn harvest, overall it's 15 points behind the 5-year average. It was 9 points behind last week. Iowa and Minnesota are at least 20 points behind their 5-year averages. We see corn harvest delays in all of the Midwest states.
The AgDay Harvest Tour is brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential.
Well, harvest may have started like a shot, but rain the last week or so has slowed progress. This week on our AgDay Harvest Tour, national reporter Betsy Gibbon trekked out to eastern Iowa, where farmers were racing against the weather.
Mark Mummelthai is trying to beat the rain, hoping a hazy afternoon in Waverly, Iowa doesn't turn into a downpour.
We've had small windows of 2 or 3 days and in between rains, and today it's just fit enough to go.
It's understandable why Mummelthai wants to get his soybeans out of the ground.
Yeah, you might as well, and I'm ready for wagons too.
It just may be the best crop he's ever produced. 2007
was our highest yield, and right now we're tracking about a bushel or bushel and a half over 07. So we're looking at what could be our biggest bean year in the last 17 years.
An eye-opener, since Mummelthai received less than an inch of rain during August and September. So much of a surprise, he thought something was wrong with his yield monitor.
We saw the numbers like, no, we got to check it again. We did it 3 times, and it was a very good surprise at where beans are at.
With crops under stress, he credits a cool summer and, more importantly, genetics.
And we all, too, just don't know where the top end really is. Now, if you give us a couple inches of rain in August and a couple inches in September, we're looking at really big numbers coming, I think.
Brian Pottabaum over in Reedland, Iowa, isn't in that much of a hurry just yet. He planted mostly corn.
We had a whole 50 acres, so that didn't take us too long. So then we did a little hand chilling on corn, but it was still pretty too wet. So we're gonna kind of just be at ease here this week and see what happens.
Producing mostly corn.
Oh, we could use a little more heat.
A decision he's still happy with despite the price.
We've been doing mostly all corn just because for us it's easier to raise, and we got a great outlet here between co-ops and ethanol plants to have a home for it.
Pottabaum should be. He had a near perfect growing season except for a rainless August and September too. He's expecting a corn yield of over 200 bushels per acre.
And I'd say we're down 5 to 10% of what we were the last few years, but we've been pretty blessed the last few years. So I would say we're going to still have some pretty damn good corn this year.
Back in the field, combines hustle before rain clouds move in.
Well, they're due to be wrong, let's put it that way, so this would be a good time.
Because it's too good of a crop to risk in the rain. Reporting in eastern Iowa, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
All right, thanks, Betsy. Like much of the Corn Belt, Mummelthai did get rain. However, they were able to resume harvest Monday, although another inch was expected late Tuesday. More is in the forecast for the weekend. As we mentioned, rain slowing harvest across the Corn Belt with Cindy Clausen. She continues our look at harvest in today's crop comments. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning, Clinton. Betsy Gibbons sent us this picture from Adair, Iowa. She says it's another rainy day in the state. Farmers tell her that moisture content is still high for the crops in the field. They're already looking into propane costs. Harvest at this farm has been stopped for the last week and a half. And Jill Kennedy sent us this photo to our Facebook page. She snapped a picture of her grandsons, Riley and Davy, watching soybean harvest near Cherry Grove, Minnesota. That day was beautiful, but since then the farm has received more than 1.5 inches of rain. Where could rain be falling this week? I'll have details in my forecast coming up, but first, here are some hometown temps.
Deciding whether to sell your old equipment? Well, Machinery Pete's Pick of the Week lets you stay informed on current market prices, allowing you to set the best possible price for your equipment. Text Pete 6 to 31313 to get started.
When we come back, we'll talk lean hog prices and expectations for the fourth quarter. And later, updated numbers from Hurricane Irma's damage in Florida. Plus, letting mom know baking with love isn't considered an actual ingredient. I'll explain when in the country.
Unlock the power of ag technology this December in Indianapolis at the first ever Ag Tech Expo. Learn all about it at farmjournalagtech.com.
In agribusiness, Brazilian farmers are expected to plant and produce smaller corn and soybean crops in the 2017-18 season. Reuters reporting the statistics agency CONAB says grain production could fall up to 6% because of less favorable weather. Now, soybeans, they were forecast higher, while corn plantings are estimated at 10% lower in Brazil. It was a mixed day for markets. Let's get some insights into Tuesday's trade. On the floor of the CME in Chicago.
Soybean market traded both sides of unchanged in a choppy action here on Tuesday. The market started the day higher, then reverted back lower a little bit later. We've been kind of confined to a fairly tight range here recently, kind of a sideways action during the last couple of weeks. Some good news for the bulls in this market is that Chinese buyers returned from vacation this week, and we did see a flash sale here this morning at 8 o'clock Central Time. Anybody who would like to see this market go higher would love to see more demand from China. Export demand's been strong, but USDA's got a really lofty projection punched into their balance sheet for the 17-18 marketing year. So we really need to see this type of demand continue. The live cattle market was sharply higher here on Tuesday, building on some gains that began on Friday and went into Monday. So we've seen 3 consecutive days here of some stronger closes in the live cattle market. We did see cash cattle improve a little bit last week. We saw some trade at 109 late last week. We actually saw some very light trade, kind of a cleanup type deal in the 109 to 110 range on Monday and Tuesday this week. So cash cattle trade holding together just a little bit better than perhaps some people would have expected, but the futures market outpacing that. We've got futures trading up in that 113 neighborhood with cash down around 110, so we should not see any deliveries here versus that October futures contract anytime soon. Again, Joe Vec from CME Group here in Chicago.
Lean hog markets continue to trade in the $60 range even as production expands. For more on the numbers behind these prices, here's Tyne Morgan from the road.
Here now with Craig Van Dyke. Craig, we've just seen this historic
number of hogs. I mean, the herd size just continues to grow, and we know we have these new processing plants that we need to feed into. But, you know, at the same time, we've seen some pressure on prices.
You know, fortunately, we're growing the hook space as we're growing the herd. You know, just recently we did see a pickup in pork demand. Mexico continues to be our biggest buyer, and Mexico last week had a huge uptick in pork purchases, and overall pork purchases were very large. So lower prices are curing lower prices as we're starting to find demand. You know, we saw hogs bottom last year around this time, and we're seeing very similar action to what we saw at the highs during the summer, the lows last year where the spreads turned. So I think we're moving towards the right direction to the upside now. But, you know, you look at back month hogs right now, summer months, April, you're talking record highs, contract highs right now. It's probably a place to be paying attention to what you need to be doing in the market.
You know, we see these new processing facilities come online, and it's a slow ramp up, right? I mean, we knew that this was going to happen. But when we see them at full capacity, and if the demand is there, I mean, is it going to change the game for these hog prices?
If the demand growth is there, then potentially. And obviously demand is very variable when it comes to livestock trading. You know, we saw back in the summer belly prices at record highs. Bellies have dropped over 60% in the past 3 months. So the packers will kill the hog for that one cut, the belly. The packers will kill the hog for that one cut. So if we can find some demand, and maybe it comes from all the cuts, maybe it comes from bellies, maybe there's a few different factors that grow foreign demand, but ultimately that's where we need to see it come from. If not, we got a big concern considering the supply.
Are you banking more on domestic demand though?
Domestic demand is your go-to, yes, yes. Domestic demand is going to lead the way. Foreign demand is the outlier that gives us that boost if it comes along.
Real quick, any quarter that you think we could see better prices? I mean, are you looking out ahead, Q4, you know, in Q1 of 2018, any time?
I think we look towards next summer to kind of see where things head, and we get belly prices back to something normal.
All right, Craig Van Dyke, thanks so much. Stay with us. We'll have much more Ag Day when we come back.
For a special report on the grain markets, call toll-free at 877-TT-HEDGE. That's 877-884-3343. Ag Day weather, brought to you by Kawasaki and the new Mule Pro FXR side-by-side. Ride like a boss with high-end styling and rugged capability.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Here is Cindy Clausen. Cindy, as we look at the map and where the rain may be falling, looks like the Great Lakes region's getting most of it.
Yeah, Great Lakes, kind of eastern Corn Belt area. We're going to be seeing a very wet day across that area. Let's take a look at the map. And you can see we have a low pressure system that's going to be passing through that region and dumping a fair amount of rain in some parts of the eastern Corn Belt before it moves over in towards the northeastern United States. Notice we get a chance to dry out in a lot of the western parts of the Corn Belt into the plain states with high pressure in control. May have some clouds in spots, but at least we'll get a little bit of dry weather for a couple of days. Heading into the overnight hours, we're going to be seeing that low continuing to push off towards the east coast. High pressure settles into the nation's midsection. We'll see another front starting to get into the northern plains. And as we head through the day on Thursday, that original system still bringing a little bit of rain to the mid-Atlantic, still some lingering clouds, maybe a couple of showers in parts of the Great Lakes area. The Pacific Northwest, you could be seeing some rain and upper elevation snow over the next couple of days. All right, here's what we're looking at as far as that precipitation. The past 24 hours, you can really see it's right around that low pressure system, especially in kind of central and northern Illinois. And as we add on the next 24 hours, you can see the progression of that low as it makes its eastward pass. Now, as far as snowfall, not a whole lot to report just yet, but as you add on to the next 24 hours, again, it's mainly in the northwest, those higher ranges in the northwestern United States. Let's take a look at those temperatures, and we've been for the most part pretty warm in the eastern United States, but we're starting to see some cooler air coming in, at least for now. Still warm in the southeast and certainly around Phoenix, but look at the 50s that we are seeing in the Pacific Northwest. Heading into tonight, we'll see those temperatures starting to dip down, a lot of 40s and 50s across the northern United States, 60s and 70s across the south. And then as we head into tomorrow, temperatures start warming up a little bit more in parts of the plains plains, still some 60s, so a fairly seasonable weather as you get into the Great Lakes area. A little cool out west. You can see why. We've got a trough right there. That's going to be moving all across the northern tier of states over the next few days. We keep the temperatures warm in the east, but we'll start to see some more stormy weather moving through the nation's midsection as we get into the weekend. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check out the weather where you live. Whitefish, Montana, mostly cloudy with some showers possible and a high of 49 degrees. Blackwell, Oklahoma, sunny and warmer with a high of 66. And Greentown, Ohio, look for showers with a high of 69.
Florida citrus growers continue to calculate the damage from Hurricane Irma. We'll have an update next. And later, defining what is and isn't an actual food ingredient.
AgDay, brought to you by John Deere. Where can you find the most comprehensive inventory of John Deere certified pre-owned tractors, combines, and sprayers? MachineFinder.com. Sometimes the best new addition to your fleet isn't new.
Charred bottles of wine in California's Napa Valley illustrate just some of the damage caused by days of furious fires. Some of the largest blazes were in Napa and Sonoma counties, home to dozens of wineries that attract tourists from around the world. More than a dozen wildfires whipped by powerful winds swept through wine country Monday, destroying at least 1,500 homes and businesses. California's Department of Forestry says the flames were burning at explosive rates. At this vineyard, it's a waiting game with stretched resources.
We had a fire truck come in, gave us pointers on what to do, and then they left and went on to another property. Other than that, we haven't seen anybody. There's not much there's so much going on that the resources are short.
The Napa Valley Vintners Trade Association says most wineries were closed because of power outages, evacuation orders, and employees who couldn't get to work. It said most grapes had already been picked. Florida's hurricane-ravaged orange crop is so small you'd have to go back to World War II to find a similar-sized crop. The Florida Department of Ag just releasing its revised orange crop forecast. It comes in at 31 million boxes. Now that's the lowest level since 1942. In comparison, last season, which ended on September 30th, it produced about 69 million boxes. That crop was the lowest since 1964, when Lyndon Johnson was president. The crop has been inundated by citrus greening. Orange juice futures have risen 20% since the end of August. Between disaster and wildfires, the Federal Emergency Management Agency is being stretched thin. That's also why North Dakota has been denied its request for a presidential major disaster declaration. Ongoing drought has plagued the state this year. Governor Doug Burgum says they recognize the enormous demands put on federal resources, but they will continue to take actions in the state to help livestock producers. There is a new American king of the pumpkins. Joel Holland of Sumner, Washington, set a new record at the Safeway Pumpkin Weigh-Off in Half Moon Bay, California. His gargantuan gourd comes in at 2,363 pounds. Now, Holland is a retired firefighter. He's a 7-time winner at Half Moon Bay. Now, he receives $7 a pound for the pumpkin, which comes in at just over $16,500. The festival will run through this weekend. So to come, lots of folks are label readers these days, but what happens when you find an ingredient that's not even a food product, but more of an emotion? Details when we come back.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Discover the power behind the M6 series at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
As food makers, consumers, and the government squabble over food labeling, one federal agency is deciding that one particular ingredient is banned from the packaging, and that's love. At this Massachusetts bakery, the owners thought it would be clever to say their specialty granola was made with a bit of love. You know, just like Grandma might say. But officials with the Food and Drug Administration took the bakery to task. The agency says the recipe must be listed with common or usual names, but love is not a common or usual name of an ingredient, so states the FDA.
It felt a little bit like an overreach on the government's part to tell us that we have to take that out. I don't think that any consumers would have a rational basis for being concerned that love had been listed as an ingredient and that somehow that was going to hurt public safety or health.
Gates said they've been using the word on their packaging for 20 years and it's never been a problem before. The FDA says using the word love is not among their top concerns. The bakery was cited for a cleaning violation. All right, there you go. Well, that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. Start your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day in farm country.
AgDay, brought to you by Ram Commercial, America's longest lasting heavy-duty pickups.